More mobility. You're limiting your mobility with shorts on.
It's not a real thing.
I don't really want to not wear shorts, but it's just more fun that you're annoyed by people not wearing shorts.
Yeah.
So,
Like, I find it odd that I have to ask you guys multiple times to put pants on.
this is Justin Lesko, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Have you ever tried to explain to someone who doesn't train Jiu-Jitsu what Jiu-Jitsu is? It's not an easy thing to do, and we're going to look at some of the things that make Jiu-Jitsu really, really weird.
Plus, we learned this week that there's more tournaments that have been canceled, but that's not stopping Submission Underground from putting together a pretty stacked card in December.
We also learned that a former world champion used to use steroids, and that Keenan Cornelius thinks that heel hooks in the IBJJF might divide the sport. But one thing we didn't learn, because we already knew it, is that we love our crown rash guards.
That's a pretty good segue. Yeah, we've been wearing them for a few months now.
And if you follow us on Instagram, you've seen that Mike's been wearing the brown belt ranked rash guard. And the good thing about crown rash guards, ranked rash guards, is that they're not over the top.
Yeah, I mean, if you typically you see some of these ranked rash guards with too much of a belt color on it, and at the end of the day, it ends up looking like a bad tie-dye job, and that's just not the case with these guys.
Fortunately, Crown Rash Guards has the right balance of minimalist design, belt rank colors, and affordable prices.
Head on over to crownrashguards.com and check out their full selection.
And make sure when you're doing the checkout, you let them know that you heard about them on the podcast. And now, welcome to That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
It's so weird because for the longest time I thought I was going to get my kids into jiu-jitsu first, but I think they're going to wrestle first.
Yeah.
I just think that for like a 5-year-old, it's wrestling simpler. You know what I mean? It's like the techniques and the concepts and everything are a lot simpler, and then it builds a base for jiu-jitsu anyway. You know what I mean? So.
Plus, when you tell people that your kids are doing wrestling, everybody knows what that is. But if you tell people your kids are doing jiu-jitsu, you have to try and explain to people what jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah, that they're not breaking boards and doing.
Yeah. Oh, if someone calls jiu-jitsu karate, it's like it hurts me in my soul. Like, it's just when people don't know what jiu-jitsu is, trying to explain jiu-jitsu without sounding like a crazy person is not an easy task, because people know that like kids do karate and shit.
Right.
There's like a culture built around karate, which karate sucks. Don't put your kids in karate.
Yeah.
But to explain that, like, oh, I just like turn up and I try and choke my friends and break their limbs, and then it's fun. We have a good time. Like, people don't get it.
And it's people will disagree with this. It is the most practical form of martial arts out there. Most practical form of self-defense, if you can learn it, so
but again, it does. If you hear when common people hear the term martial arts, they think like breaking boards and karate.
There's common misconceptions. One example that I always laugh at was when that guy was on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he's like, what's the practical application of jiu-jitsu?
I shared that a little while ago.
And he was like, well, if you and I were to fight, I would kill you.
Yeah, it pretty much sums it up. But explaining like the day in, day out, like what you do when you go to jiu-jitsu, it's
not like, that's why you see all those memes. What my girlfriend thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what I think I do, what I actually do.
Yeah, I use my friends' clothing to choke them as best I can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I help my friends to be better at choking me so that they can try to injure me and put me as close to death as you can get without actually dying.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But wrestling, it's just like, oh, wrestling's a thing kids do. They go and they wrestle.
I don't think that one of the things I that always strikes me as like a major misconception is people don't understand, like they don't understand the techniques and I guess the point of the sport, but they don't understand how practical it is. You know what I mean? Like they don't get it.
On the sport side of things, it's difficult for a person who doesn't train jiu-jitsu to watch jiu-jitsu and know what's going on.
It's difficult for a person who trains jiu-jitsu to watch the. I'm not joking. It's so difficult. Because everything's fucking subjective.
I think with every other sport, when people watch it, it usually breaks down pretty simply to like team 1 wants to put something where team 2 doesn't want them to put it. And I get what's happening. I don't really know the in-depth rules to soccer, but I get it. They want to put the ball in the net. With jiu-jitsu, if you don't know what's happening, like I'll be in my guard, playing in my guard. Like there was times in MMA fights when if you watch like the cell phone footage that someone took from the crowd, like members of my family, I'd be on top. Like I had a mounted triangle in an amateur fight, and I can hear my uncle on the video yelling, "Get up, get up, get up!" And my cousin Patty was like, "No, like he's good, like about to finish the fight."
Yeah.
People just don't know what's happening. They just never see it before.
Yeah.
It's hard to conceptualize the rules. So it's weird to say to someone, yeah, if I'm on my back and my legs are wrapped around my opponent, like I'm in a good spot there. That's where I want to be. Like that's a weird,
it's bizarre
sporting position. Yeah.
I normally get ridiculed by people for training. Are you going to roll around in pajamas with your friends?
Yeah.
You're going to go wrestle sweaty guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So that if you try to wrestle me, I could kill you.
Yeah, so I could literally end your life.
Have you ever choked someone out all the way? That's a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, I was rolling with so-and-so and I put him to sleep.
Yeah, it hasn't happened a lot, but yeah, it's Brian White once, because Brian White's the most stubborn roller in the world.
Have you ever gone out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got put out in a tournament one time. I got put out by, I think Rizzo put me out one time. And Brian put me out one time. A couple times.
Yeah. Just, choked
and
unconscious a few times. Not a big deal.
And the two times when Rizzo put me out and Brian put me out, it's weird because I didn't think I was out. You know what I mean? I thought I was like conscious throughout the entire thing, but I obviously wasn't.
Oh.
Like in my mind, there was no
gap in time.
There was no period of like unconsciousness. Yeah. I was there the whole time. But then I was like, wait, nope, and I remember the one time Brian, he was like, yeah, you were out. And I was like, no, I wasn't. He was like, yeah, you were. And it's the same thing with Rizzo. I forget
what Rizzo... It's been 10 minutes. You were out.
Rizzo got me with a fucking punch choke. And you remember how he's got those bony-ass fucking knuckles? But they never, like, it's just a pain choke, I thought it was just like an airway choke, but he got it right on the artery, dude. And I went out. Must have been quick. Like, I thought I was fine, and then I wasn't.
I thought I was putting you out the other night with that punch choke.
Nope.
It was close. I put my dad out one time. Were you there when I put my dad to sleep?
Yeah, but you almost killed your dad.
Yeah, because I didn't realize he was asleep. Yeah. I had like a head and arm choke in side control, and then he just wasn't tapping, which was his thing.
Yeah.
And I just had it, and then Anthony had to be like, he's asleep, and then he was out. So I guess that was a weird thing that I've put my dad to sleep against his will, and it was like sort of a normal
I wouldn't
thing.
Say against his will.
I mean, he didn't want to go to sleep, but
he entered into mutual combat.
But again, like if you take one step back from we do this every day, it's weird that he entered into mutual combat with his son and agreed to go to sleep as a consequence of that combat. One more thing to round out the weirdness. If you were trying to convince someone that jiu-jitsu was not weird, then you should not have them come to no-gi for the first class. Because when you walk into no-gi and the mat's a slip and slide and everyone is wearing head-to-toe spandex and some people are not wearing anything over their spandex, just leggings.
Do you remember how bad Thursday nights used to be at Revolution? You fucking animals. I mean, and that was like back in the day, like nobody fucking cleaned up. Like we would come in on Fridays. There's fucking blood on the mats. You would go in there on Thursday nights. Nobody was wearing fucking clothes. Like you'd be wearing the spandex shorts.
I may be guilty in having only worn like spandex leggings and no shorts over the top. I haven't done that recently, but I will admit to have doing it in the past.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you guys. Bunch of fucking Neanderthals.
I always wear rash guard, and I often wear long leggings. Is the appropriate term when you're a man, are they leggings or are they tights? I feel like tights is more
I just say spandex
ballet.
pants. I just say spandex pants.
That seems too long to... Got on my leggings, got on my tights.
Got on my spandex pants.
Spandex pants. It's too many syllables.
Got on my leggings, tights, spandex pants. I mean, it's an extra syllable from leggings.
Yeah. Either way, I always wear them. And I wear shorts now over the top, but there's been times when I just go, just the leggings. So it might be a little weird.
Just wear fucking pants. Like, that's, you know? Like, just fucking don't wear just spandex.
But it's not comfortable sometimes.
Sometimes
you're wearing shorts, like you're rolling nogi and you got shorts on over your leggings and like they like bunch up or move around. It's like uncomfortable. Sometimes you just gotta let it be. More mobility. You're limiting your mobility with shorts on.
It's not a real thing.
Now, I don't really want to not wear shorts, but it's just more fun that you're annoyed by people not wearing shorts.
Yeah.
So.
Because I would walk in there, and it would be you, and it would be Grayson, and it would be Dalton, and you guys would... Like, I find it odd that I have to ask you guys multiple times to put pants on.
Well, jiu-jitsu is a weird sport, I guess.
All right, guys, we just wanted to take a quick break to kind of update you on our Patreon account. As you guys know, if you've been listening, we're running a contest right now for a free gi.
So it's really simple. If you subscribe to us on Patreon, at the end of the month, we're going to pick a name from the new subscribers, and that person's going to win a free gi from Always Be Choking. So just head over to patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. It's a great way to support the show, and you could potentially win a brand new gi from Always Be Choking.
And also, if you're a Patreon member or you're thinking about joining, we're going to be posting 2 technique breakdown videos later this week, so stay tuned for that.
We really appreciate the support. It's a great way to help us keep putting out content. We have tiers as little as $3, $5, $10. We appreciate any support you can give, but also you still have a chance to win a free gi, and there's a lot of bonus content coming soon, so check it out, patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. Say it now, back to the show.
And now back to the show.
We had a couple weeks where it was the jiu-jitsu news was like not overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple weeks where it was super busy. And this is kind of one of those busy weeks again.
Right. Not as
First
busy,
off,
but...
IBJJF Worlds canceled. Which... It's still weird that, like, we're going to talk about the Submission Underground card, but one tournament gets canceled, and then you have a pro event announced, and it's not a tournament, obviously, the Submission Underground card.
And that's where it comes. That's what it comes down to. Like, that was their moneymaker. People come from all around the world. There's still travel restrictions in place, and it just wasn't feasible. It's just extremely difficult. And the one thing that I can say is I wouldn't normally put it past the people who run IBJJF to just put a product out there and try and get as much money as they can from it. But it's good that they're not sacrificing quality for quantity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure at a certain point you tip past making a profit where it's going to cost more to put it on than you'll make from people showing up. But that's, I think, my cynical view on it. I also am happy that they're not putting out quantity over quality, but
yeah.
Also, on the heels of, we talked about recently that they pushed back ADCC to 2022. I mean, pretty expected, but the trials were all just canceled as well, which...
It's the fan base. It's the limited number of fans that they would, if any, be able to have in the stands that caused them to move it. That's where they're planning to make their money from. with IBJJF, they make their money from competitors. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah. We were kind of talking before we started recording, but like, there's like looming potential shutdown
yeah,
again. So I think it's also smart that if it's on their radar that they're going to cancel these events, do it now. Don't wait for people to book travel and accommodations. And if you put on a tournament, people are going to come. If you host Worlds, people are going to show up. Do everybody a favor and just cancel it early. But
yeah, I agree. I
when
agree.
IBJJF does come back, we talked about it a few weeks ago that they're now going to allow heel hooks and reaping and no gi. Keenan had an interesting take on it, which I don't disagree with, that you're going to see people have to specialize in either no gi or in the gi because it's very difficult to be really good at no gi once you add in a whole new skill set, a whole new game in the leg lock game that IBJJF gi competitors didn't really have to worry about so much.
Right.
As long as they weren't doing sub only or outside shows, it's going to be difficult to train both skill sets.
So when I was training with Danny Myra, he prior to this, like I would just try to implement my game um, from gi into no gi, right? So like I would just kind of adjust my approach and without the grips, and I would get by. You know what I mean? I would get by, and then I started training with him, and I was getting the shit kicked out of me in no gi. Like I could with the gi, like I've always been able to hang with people in the gi. Even if they were much better than me, and he is much better than me, but I felt like I could always slow people down in the gi, and
Yeah,
he would still
yeah.
kick the shit out of me in the gi, but it was closer in the gi than it was no gi. And one day afterwards, he said to me, he's like, "Listen, he's like, you're trying to play the game that you play in the gi in no gi, and it's not gonna work. Like you have to have a different approach in no gi than you do in the gi. Like you need to have your principles need to be different in no gi than in the gi, and that's why like there's a no gi season and there's a gi season. And as difficult as it is already to kind of make adapt to the different games, I'll say it's going to be even harder now when you throw heel hooks into it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be nearly impossible to compete.
Yeah, I think the leg lock game and adding in heel hooks, it's more than like on face value. It just seems like okay, you've added one more submission in. Just learn the defense for one more submission, but it's a whole approach and it's a whole mindset, and it changes. Like my leg lock game changes the way I pass guard. It changes the way I retain guard. It changes the way I scramble, and I'm not one of the best grapplers in the world.
You have people whose game is based on a leg lock system. And for however many years the IBJJF has been around, that their skill set, if they wanted to compete in these tournaments, they weren't allowed to utilize their skill set, right? So now you're bringing those people in, and they're like, you're telling these people, okay, you can use this now. But at the same time, the people who have been successful and have adapted to the rules of IBJJF prior to this, you're telling them now you have to deal with something that you haven't had to deal with, and we're letting these guys do it who are really fucking good at it. By the way, good luck. You're going to get your legs ripped off.
The point Keenan is making that I agree with is that it's going to be very difficult for someone who is a gi world champion to be a gi world champion in the same year they're a no gi world champion. Because like you said earlier, the game is very different between gi and no gi, but you could get by. If you were a gi specialist, you could get by in the IBJJF no gi tournament because of the way the rule set is. But with adding in reaping and heel hooks, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get by. And I don't think Like, we already see guys like Craig Jones and Gordon Ryan, you don't see them competing at IBJJF Worlds in the gi.
No.
So there's already a division there between really good leg lock guys and gi guys. But what you're not going to see now is guys who were very good in the gi and also good in no gi at IBJJF, because Craig Jones and Gordon Ryan are going to be able to heel hook you. But again, I'm not one of the best dudes in the world, and
You're not?
I can't say from experience. I mean, you know,
I know.
I think I have a good leg lock game, but I don't think that I'm winning. I'll go out on a limb and say I am not going to win adult gi worlds and adult no gi worlds in the same year next year. I think I can safely say I'll make that prediction.
Well, you're not. It's because you're in the Masters division.
I could still do adult.
They don't let you do it.
If I want. You can still do it.
Nope. They called me and told me that everyone else can do it but you.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I believe that.
Because you don't wear pants.
Also, speaking of, this is I think our last IBJJF related story, but Muhammad Ali was doing an Instagram Q&A and basically admitted to using steroids.
I mean, is anybody fucking surprised?
So this has to be I'll appeal to the law enforcement person on our show. It has to be like a strategy for criminals where you admit to a past crime while you're still doing that crime to like throw them off the trail.
It doesn't matter, right? Because they don't test. Well, they do test, but they don't really test. Did you see his fucking opening round match with Nick Rodriguez?
Yeah.
At ADCC? Yeah. Like, that wasn't, like... He made Nick Rodriguez look small. He was 260 pounds with a six-pack. Like, he's a monster. I'm not surprised by it. I don't know what his play is, but...
well, he said that he didn't think it really helped him, and it was basically it's not for me kind of position. I didn't like it kind of position. But I would also think that if you have long been suspected of doing a thing, and you're going to continue to do that thing, if you admit that you did it in the past, but you didn't like it, maybe people won't think you're still doing it. I'm not saying he is or isn't, because I don't want Muhammad Ali to kill me, but...
He can't kill both of us at the same time.
If he's on the juice, maybe he can. We sort of mentioned it earlier, but Submission Underground announced a card for, I think it's December 20th. It's a Mason Fowler, our boy Mason Fowler, who our interview with Mason Fowler would be up here. I'll put it over. You can click this button. He's defending his title against Satoshi Ishii, which if I messed up that pronunciation,
no, I think that's it.
But he's an Olympic gold medalist in judo and an MMA fighter, so that should be an interesting matchup with Mason's going to
beat him.
I agree, but it's an interesting matchup between a judoka and Mason Fowler. But this card has a bunch of MMA fighters on it,
right?
And like sort of cool matchups, like Donald Cerrone versus Rafael dos Sanyos. Like, who would have thought we'd see these two guys in a jiu-jitsu competition?
If Dos Anjos is still alive after fucking Paul Felder.
Well, we're recording this on the Thursday before Paul Felder is fighting RDA, which, gangster move.
Seriously.
5 days notice.
Seriously.
Gangster move.
That's like makes you proud to be from the Philadelphia area. That motherfucker, man. Like, when he stepped up. So there's this thing on ESPN Plus. It's called Fight Island Declassified. Have you watched it?
Mm-mm.
You have ESPN Plus, right? So it's like a 4.
Yes, I legally watch all of my UFC content.
He doesn't. But anyway, I watch that, and Paul Felder is he's a cool dude.
Yeah, trying to get him on the show still.
Hey, Paul.
He's a little busy
listen,
this week, but
come on the fucking podcast, please. Anyway.
So when you're listening to this in the future, as of right now, we're very excited for this fight, and I hope Paul Felder wins because
Paul Felder is like one of those Donald Cerrone type fighters. Like, I would get up at 3:00 in the morning to watch Paul Felder fight. Like, I won't ever miss a Paul Felder fight.
Yeah. And I don't think he has too many of them left, so I really hope he can pull out a win versus
And he's a great commentator too, so.
Yeah, I think he slid into that role really well when they first started having him do commentary. Like, he first started sitting on the desk, like not calling fights. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
Analyst?
Yeah.
Were you just going to say
And,
analytical?
I was going to say analyzing because I couldn't think of the noun for analyze.
He's an analyzer.
He's an analyzer.
He's an analystister.
Anyway, on this fight, they also have it's Felicia Spencer versus Amanda Lowen.
Yeah.
Again, I think is how you're saying Lowen. But that's for the women's title, which is pretty cool. So you have 2 title fights in the top. You have a bunch of MMA fighters fighting. Like we said, Donald Cerrone versus RDA.
Who did Anthony Johnson fight? Who did he fight a while ago?
Anthony Johnson fought Craig Jones like more than a year ago.
Right.
But
he got
he got heel hooked.
Really
and,
quick, yeah.
I actually did right after that match. It was like more than a year ago. I taught a class of I taught that finish, how Craig Jones finished Anthony Johnson and how he set that up, that heel hook. So I'll probably put that out on our Patreon feed later this week to be sort of a bonus technique breakdown / instructional. But Anthony Johnson is actually fighting Verdum on this one coming up.
It's going to end no differently for him.
No, I don't think so. But I mean, Anthony Johnson is going to grapple Fabricio Verdum. Like, that's cool. Like, isn't that cool? Are you not excited?
Yeah.
I am. I know why you're not super excited for that one. Because there's a fight that I didn't know that I needed. And that is Derek Lewis is going to grapple against Ryan Bader.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. This is just Chael Sonnen being Chael Sonnen.
Yeah, I mean, you put Chael Sonnen running a Jiu Jitsu professional card. Submission Underground, by the way, they do a good job. They put on a good show, even pandemic-wise. Chael P is holding it down. But I kind of feel like on this one, it's just Chael like, this guy and this guy. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. Maybe we should do like a live episode where we'll watch this card in December. It's a few days before Christmas. Get together, watch the card.
Okay.
A lot of these matches are, I don't want to say a lot. A few of these matches are a really good jiu-jitsu person versus a person with decent jiu-jitsu for MMA.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do a couple of, if they give us enough time in between matches, we can do a breakdown real quick on our live episode.
Because it's not going to be a very long breakdown.
Well, yeah, so maybe we can slide it right in. But I'm excited for that. It should be a good card. Amanda Nunes is injured and out of her fight with Megan Anderson, which I think is just pushing the fight back a little bit. They haven't released any real details, but that's a bummer for everyone but Megan Anderson because just kind of getting a stay of execution there.
Hey, good luck. You good job. You don't get to fucking get the shit kicked out of you on pay-per-view.
You can keep your teeth for a few extra months.
It's going to be so bad.
And then in not at all jiu-jitsu or MMA news, Floyd Mayweather has announced that he is going to come back and box and do something that's going to coincide with the Olympics next summer. Your thoughts?
Just, he must need money.
Well, he's always needed money. Everyone's always known that Floyd spends everything he gets right away.
How
like
though?
3 years.
Right? Like how?
I don't know. I would have to try really hard to blow through $100 million. I would have to really
but like he's made $100 million multiple times.
Yeah, because he gets $100 million, spends $100 million. Gets $100 million, spends $100 million. So
it's just crazy to me.
I guess he's going to come back. I don't know.
Floyd Mayweather's a scumbag.
Agreed. Seems like a good stopping point.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're interested in following us on social media, we've put the links to our individual accounts as well as the account of the show below. Also, we put a link below to our YouTube page. And if you go there, you can find video versions of all of our episodes.
I'm also going to link to our Patreon below. If you sign up to Patreon, not only do you get ad-free versions of every episode, we're still running the contest, like we mentioned, to win the free gi. And there's 2 bonus episodes coming this week, which are going to be 2 technique breakdowns. So make sure you check those out. Patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. say thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.